Welcome back to our channel, where we present updates and concealed tales about royal family. We are happy to offer the following news. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle lose long-term aide James Holt after Archewell scandal exposed. A business earthquake has rocked the court of Harry and Meghan, which is located in the tranquility of Montecito, California, which is surrounded by sun-drenched, groomed gardens. James Holt, the staunch executive director of the Archewell Foundation, has resigned from his position. He was the individual who helped bridge the gap between their previous lives as working royals and their new life in the United States. The departure of this individual is not a solitary tremor, but rather the conclusive and thunderous indication that a foundation is in complete collapse. It is the climax of a personnel exodus that was so total that it has been nicknamed a bloodbath by some who are within the organization. As a result, the multi-million-dollar charitable company has been reduced to a hollowed-out shell. Because of this professional catastrophe, the carefully created facade of the Sussex brand has been ripped away, revealing the chaos that exists within. This has brought up the one issue that the couple cannot afford to have answered. If their shared career ideal is no longer a possibility, will their marriage be the next step? The announcement was wrapped in the unremarkable and reassuring language of business transformation, and it was skillfully slipped into the news vacuum that existed between Christmas and the New Year. However, the harsh reality cannot be concealed by any amount of public relations gloss being applied. Holt's departure is not only a shift in personnel, rather, it represents the destruction of a fundamental support structure in the post-royal world of the Sussexes. He was more than just an employee. He was the guardian of institutional memory, a loyalist who had been with Prince Harry for 8 years, long before the whirlwind of Meghan, Megxit, and the relocation to America. A loyalist who had been with Prince Harry for 8 years. It is an indication of a leadership and vision crisis of such a severe nature that it throws into question the very viability of the Sussex enterprise itself. His departure comes after a series of other important exits. When it comes to a couple who establish their entire public identity on the grounds of their shared humanitarian goal, the breakdown of Archewell is not merely a failure in business, it is a threat to their very existence. In the event that the final guardian goes down, before making any attempt to appreciate the seismic implications that James Holt's departure will have, it is vital to first comprehend the distinct position that he holds inside the orbit of Sussex. He had not been employed by Hollywood just recently, nor was he a public relations expert who had been brought in to address the most recent issue. A product of the old world, Holt was a link to the institutional discipline and structure of the British monarchy, which Harry and Meghan have so publicly rejected. Holt was a product of the old world. He was a creature that existed in the ancient world. Around 8 years ago, he began working with Prince Harry, which was a significant amount of time before the Invictus Games became a worldwide phenomenon. This is a subject that is very near and dear to the prince's heart, and his primary concentration was on the mental health of British soldiers. Holt was present throughout the entire period of time when Harry and Meghan were establishing their own home office within the institution of the royal family. They were one of the very few people who embarked on the transatlantic journey with them when they made their spectacular breakout, and the fact that he was one of those people is a reflection of his apparent dedication and belief in their mission, especially when compared to the hyper-pressured environment that surrounds the Sussexes. An assistant with Holt's tenure is an amazing example. This is especially true when compared to the volatile world of celebrity. As time goes on, they transform into more than just employees. They become confidants, strategists, and the hidden builders of the public lives of their employers. They are able to take on the pressure, keep order in the midst of the chaos, and translate ideas that are volatile into tactics that can be put into action. Holt's ability to effectively handle the rift with the royal family, the beginning of a new life in a new nation, and the establishment of Archewell from the ground up is suggestive of a level of resiliency and devotion that makes his untimely departure all the more troubling. Archewell was established from the ground up. Indeed, he was the last guardsman from the ancient royal walls, the final sliver of consistency in a narrative that was marked by disruption. He was the last guardsman from the ancient royal walls. As a consequence of his departure, a number of unsettling concerns have been brought to light. What internal reality could have gotten so unsustainable that it would drive a figure who had been working on the project for such a tremendous amount of time and was considered to be a fundamental figure to give up on it? All professionals working in crisis management agree that the departure of a senior and long-term leader is never an easy career move. This is a consensus among crisis management professionals. This is especially true in situations where the resignation occurs at the same time as a widespread reduction in the workforce. This red signal of the highest sort, which implies that the situation is exceedingly serious, suggests that there has been a fundamental collapse in leadership, strategy, or finances. However, it is quite likely that all three of these things have occurred. According to the well-constructed narrative about Holt and his family desiring to return to London, the narrative looks to be glaringly flimsy in the context of the larger organizational collapse. This is despite the fact that the narrative is convincing when it is considered in isolation. According to those with knowledge of the situation, the pressure cooker environment, the constant strategic pivots, and the string of public failures, ranging from the collapse of their landmark Spotify deal to the lukewarm reception of their Netflix projects, created an atmosphere of perpetual crisis, from which even the most devoted assistant would eventually seek to escape. An onslaught of failures and a complete and utter dishonest distortion of the situation. To be clear, James Holt was not the one who went in a solitary fashion. Archewell's operational capacity has been gradually degraded as a result of a series of exits, the culmination of which was his departure, acting as the crowning achievement. The statement was soon followed by the news, which came immediately after the announcement of Meredith Maine's departure, another senior figure, and the covert termination of 3 other junior staff members. All of these events occurred shortly after the announcement. In a matter of weeks, an organization that had been portrayed to the world as a flourishing charity powerhouse was reduced to a skeleton crew consisting of 1 or 2 people. This was a significant blow to the organization's reputation. Both the rate at which the collapse occurred and the size of the collapse as a whole cannot be exaggerated. Rather than being a rearrangement, the process is more accurately described as a destruction. The timing of this implosion, according to the opinions of some of the most experienced public relations strategists, was a textbook example of cynical news management. During the holiday season, when news cycles are slow, journalists are away on vacation, and the attention of the general public is diverted, the announcements were purposefully staggered and published at different times. These actions were taken in order to ensure that the announcements had the greatest possible impact. In order to conceal horrible news in the hope that it will be accepted with little to no inquiry, corporations and politicians use this tried and true method. This strategy has been used for a long time. In order to conceal a narrative about their own tragic failure, it seemed as though the Sussexes were adopting the same dark arts of media manipulation as many other people. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have regularly asserted that the media has violated their privacy in an unjust manner. The fact that they carried out this premeditated action suggests that they are acutely conscious of the harm that has been occurring. Over the course of the holiday season, they made an attempt to disguise the fact that this was not a triumphant narrative of a strategic shift, but rather a story of failure. This was because they were aware of the fact that this was not a story of success. There was an additional layer of mystery added to the story by a PR stunt that, when examined in retrospect, appears to have been exceptionally cruel. After the announcement of the layoffs, Harry and Meghan made arrangements for a photo opportunity to take place soon before the announcement. During the photo opportunity, members of their staff were helping at a charity event. It is quite possible that some of those employees were about to be dismissed, and they were among those who participated in the photo opportunity. The images were made available to the general public, and they represented a group of people who were dedicated to delivering service and who were joyful and united on their mission. Nevertheless, a few days later, the team was completely annihilated. Because of this chain of events, claims of fundamentally cynical exploitation have surfaced. The company is accused of using its employees as props in a final photo op that is intentionally dishonest before firing. These allegations have led to the corporation being accused of exploiting its employees. A picture is painted of a leadership that is disconnected from the human implications of their decisions, placing an emphasis on image rather than the well-being of the same people who are tasked with the responsibility of reaching their goal. This is a picture that is painted. Deconstructing the fiscal sponsorship paradigm is the topic of this article. The hollow crown, in full. There is an official rationale for the gutting of Archewell, and that justification is that they are migrating to a fiscal sponsorship model. This is despite the fact that this seemingly harmless commercial word masks a profound retreat from their proclaimed intentions. A clever and simplified approach was presented to the general public, giving them the impression that it was a strategy. Only specialists who work in the nonprofit sector are able to interpret a managed surrender. This is the only thing that allows for interpretation. A fiscal sponsorship model is an arrangement where a project or an individual with a charitable thought essentially outsources the full administrative and financial backbone of their business to an established, larger 501c3 organization. Despite the fact that the sponsor is accountable for managing compliance, supervising the budget, and handling donations, the foundation's founders, who in this instance are Harry and Meghan, are relieved of the day-to-day responsibilities that are typically associated with the operation of a foundation. The notion that they are employers, managers, or strategists in the same sense is no longer accurate with regard to them. After all is said and done, they end up becoming prominent brand advocates for a cause that is controlled by other individuals. This plan is a shocking downgrade for a company of Archewell's predicted scope and renown, despite the fact that it may work as a valid model for smaller initiatives that are still in the early phases of development. When Harry and Meghan first formed Archewell, they did so with the idea of being active agents of change and developing a global organization that would compete with the foundations established by people of prominence, such as the Obamas or Bill Gates. They did this with the intention of establishing Archewell as a global organization. In order to achieve their goal of being at the center of the activity, they wanted to take the lead on projects and build a team that represented their own image. As a veiled admission that they have not been effective in achieving their objective, they have made the move to a type of fiscal sponsorship. The idea that they do not have the knowledge, financial means, or motivation to operate the complex machinery of a modern nonprofit organization is created as a result of having this information. Because of this ploy, they are able to maintain the Archewell name and the clout that is associated with it, which is the most valuable asset that they have in their possession. Despite the fact that the challenging and unglamorous work of administration, fundraising, and implementation is handled by a separate company that is not visible to the public, they are permitted to continue associating their names with charitable causes, accepting humanitarian prizes, and speaking on global stages. All of this is done while the company is not visible to the public. To phrase it in the simplest possible terms, this is the commercialization of the humanitarian work that they do. An empty crown that gives the impression of humanitarian service without the great load of actual leadership. The foundation becomes a vehicle for branding the organization. It is a crown that gives the impression of humanitarian assistance. The retreat into a hands-off policy that has been adopted is the most persuasive proof to yet that the magnificent vision for Archewell has been reduced to ashes. This is because the strategy has actually been implemented. There are cracks in the monolith, which is the fatal endgame. Last but not least, when it comes to the exclusive world of A-list celebrities, the realms of company and marriage are frequently intricately tied to one another. This is especially true in the case of marriage. Creating a joint enterprise, especially one as personal as a namesake foundation, is one method to make a public declaration of a united front. This is especially true when the foundation is named after the joint venture. The success of a power couple contributes to the image of the couple as a power couple, while the failure of the partnership may disclose the cracks that are present within the personal connection. When a celebrity couple's joint economic endeavors start to fail in public, it is frequently the earliest and most reliable indicator that the couple is experiencing difficulties in their private marriage. Royal historians and celebrity biographers both point to this pattern as an example of a trend that has been seen. A pattern that is eerily consistent can be described as unsettling. One typical illustration of this is the sale of a house that is occupied by more than one person at the same time. Divorce attorneys commonly receive calls shortly after the listing of a notable couple's marital mansion is made public. This occurs after the couple has secretly put their property for sale by the couple. It is required to first separate the principal assets that were jointly owned in order to properly accomplish a formal separation. This is a prerequisite for a successful separation. The demolition of Archewell can now be comprehended when viewed through the same cold and practical perspective as what was previously mentioned. Harry and Meghan have effectively dissolved their most difficult joint venture by reducing the foundation to a straightforward corporation that is owned by an outside party. This was accomplished through the process of reducing the foundation to a straightforward firm. During the process of transforming a complex, interdependent organization that includes workers, legal obligations, and intricate financials into a clear branding agreement that can be immediately assigned to one party or fully dissolved in the event of a separation, the organization is changed into a straightforward branding agreement. It is impossible to overstate the magnitude of the expectations that have been put on the marriage of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex ever since they officially parted ways with the royal family. They have been subjected to a profound and terrible estrangement from their family, as well as the failure of big economic deals, the continuous censure of the public, and the uncertainty of their financial status. All of these things have been brought upon them. The basis upon which their entire post-royal identity was established was the promise of their joint authority, which was the combination of his royal history and her Hollywood commercial ability. This was the first step in the formation of their identity. Archewell was supposed to be the significant manifestation of that power, and that was the plan all along. Not only does the failure of this thing result in a loss for the corporation, but it also results in a failure of the core plot that they have employed. The fact that their combined brand was not even capable of providing financial assistance to a charitable foundation of a scale that was considered to be reasonable is evidence that their combined brand was not even close to becoming the global power that they had envisioned it to be. Due to the fact that this professional endeavor was unsuccessful, there is no question that the personal partnership will be subjected to a considerable amount of anxiety. The pair is now forced to approach each other without the distracting barrier of a common objective, because the shared endeavor that justifies all of the sacrifices and controversies disintegrated. This leaves the couple with no choice but to confront each other. In this scenario, the question that needs to be answered is, what is left? As a result of the constant and somewhat orchestrated demonstrations of affection in public, onlookers have been viewing them with suspicion for a considerable amount of time. It has been observed by these observers that the hand-holding and adoring gazes appear to become more intense when they are filmed by cameras. As a result of the fact that they no longer share the ambition of establishing an Archewell empire, the two individuals are now compelled to confront the reality of their choices and the fact that their particular objectives are extremely dissimilar to one another. Harry's escape hatch, which is designated as 2 courts in exile, can be found in the United Kingdom. During the flurry of statements that were made announcing Archewell's reorganization, there was a piece of information that was relatively minor but enormously significant. From this point forward, the Director of Communications for the pair in the United Kingdom and Europe will primarily be responsible for overseeing Prince Harry's communications, rather than the communications that the couple works together on. This seemingly small bureaucratic upheaval is referred to as a political earthquake in the coded language of royal courts. This word is used to explain the upheaval from a political perspective. Not only does this represent the official formation of separate professional tracks, but it also signifies the creation of a distinct power base for Prince Harry, which is centered on the United Kingdom. This is a significant development. Throughout the course of a great number of years, the Sussex family has successfully operated as a single unit, with the intention of giving the idea that they were the product of a single, unified organization. Their statements, projects, and communications were meant to provide that image. It is the first formal indicator that they are headed in different paths, and it is the separation of their public relations apparatus. It provides the sense that Harry is attempting to establish a professional identity that is independent of his British history and the things that he is most passionate about, such as the success of the Invictus Games. However, this identity is nonetheless related to his British heritage. An escape hatch is being established by Harry, according to royal observers, as a means of keeping his own relevance and operational capacity in a manner that is separate from Meghan's Hollywood-focused ambitions. This is being done in order to protect his own business interests. As a result of the fact that this new development has taken place, there is a growing suspicion that Harry is making preparations for a future in which he will spend more time in the United Kingdom, either with or without his family. A disagreement that has been going on for a long time between him and the British government about his security arrangements is a fight that only makes sense if he anticipates having a significant presence in the country in the future. The legal battle has been going on for a long time. By retaining his own communications staff in the United Kingdom and by having James Holt, who is now back in London, serve as a senior philanthropic advisor during trips overseas, Harry is essentially establishing a shadow court in exile. This is accomplished by maintaining his own communications staff from the United Kingdom. This developing dynamic is a clear indication that there is a fundamental difference between their goals and how they want to achieve them. Building a lifestyle and media brand in the same spirit as Gwyneth Paltrow or Oprah Winfrey, a road that is thoroughly established in the celebrity culture of California, appears to be the path that Meghan will take in the future. This is a road that is deeply established in the culture of California. During this interim period, it seems as though Harry is either unable or unwilling to discard his prior identity. His most successful individual initiatives are still tied to his background, including his responsibilities as a soldier, a prince, and a global advocate for veterans. He has been successful in all of these endeavors. A guy who is clinging to the one and only role he has ever known is shown by his continued pursuit of what some critics have referred to as a cosplay royal routine. This routine consists of partaking in overseas tours and charitable excursions. The establishment of two separate professional courts is a clear indication that the relationship between the two parties is no longer progressing in the same similar direction. The wreckage of the ship that they all took together is being used to make individual lifeboats for each of them. As they continue to grow more apart professionally, navigating their own projects and maintaining their own public images, the question of whether or not they are able to retain their personal unity becomes more pressing than it has ever been before. This is because they are dealing with their own public images and projects. The fall of Archewell was not the beginning of the end, yet it may very well have been the moment when the world was finally given the opportunity to observe the significant structural cracks that had been building in the House of Sussex for a number of years. Archewell's demise was not the beginning of the collapse of the House of Sussex. The intertwined trees that make up their logo now look to be more of a foreboding of a relationship that is on the edge of being destroyed. In the past, these trees were a representation of their collaborative expansion. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and say goodbye for now.